Hey now, welcome to the 17th episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, well then welcome back. And if this is your first time listening to our podcast, well then welcome. Tonight's quote does not come from a book about psychedelics, but it comes from a book that talks about life lessons and stuff like that. And it is Siddhartha from Hermann Hesse. When someone seeks, said Siddhartha, then it easily happens that his eyes see only the thing that he seeks, and he is able to find nothing, to take in nothing, because he always thinks only about the thing he is seeking. Because he has one goal, because he is obsessed with his goal. Seeking means having a goal, but finding means being free, being open, and having no goal. So I chose that quote because that's one of my favorite books. I've read it several times. And our guest tonight has kind of a cool story. And it's one of kind of finding a new path in life thanks to psychedelics, but I think that's not necessarily something that everyone needs to do, but that's just what his story is. So I'd like to introduce to you guys Martin. How are you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Great. And also, as always, Stahn is on the line. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man.
Awesome. Yeah, it's it feels good to be recording a podcast again. I think it's been about 3 weeks since we've recorded one.
Yeah,
and,
it's definitely been a while.
Yeah, but we both, we did the episode about seasonal depression, and I think like we've both been kind of feeling that, and I don't know, I'm feeling the energy now. Like spring has sprung, and the leaves are starting to come out on trees, and it's warm and stuff. So
things are getting better.
Yeah, I'm hoping like kind of energy and everything will start rolling here, and we'll start kicking ass again. But anyway, Martin, we talked the other night, and why don't you just kind of tell your story about finding psychedelics and how they've helped you find yourself and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I am 24, and I lived the first 21 years of my life going to high school and then moving on to college, because that's just what you do when you're in kind of my situation in life. It was just kind of expected. And I majored in computer engineering, and it went through the first 3 years of school, just like normal kind of, and got an internship at a big tech company that next summer, going into my senior year, and they offered me a job for post-college. And so I just said yes, knowing I had basically a free senior year after that. I only had like 4 or 5 total classes to take between 2 semesters, and I had a job locked down. So I just said yes to kind of not have any worries for that year. I started smoking weed that summer as well. I moved back to Kansas City that summer to work for that internship, and I was near my brothers, and they kind of got me into it. And that summer I also tried mushrooms for the first time. The mushrooms, I didn't get much from them that time. It was more, I was always interested, I guess, in what exactly the psychedelic experience is. And that time I took an eighth, and it was just visual and funny. I didn't really get much about it. Anyways, fast forward, I go through senior year, graduate, and I have about a month and a half between starting my job and graduating college. So I just have this free month. My younger brother had gotten into LSD recently, and he gave me a call and said, "Hey, do you want to come up and try this with me?" So I was just interested. I didn't really know much about it. I did research and, made sure it's safe, figured out like what it was all about, went up and took it, and I took one tab, about 100 mics, and it was like one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. We just walked around campus on this beautiful summer afternoon. We took it at 9 a.m. So it was just all day, just walking around in the sun, hanging out at the house, smoking weed, eating pizza, just all fun. And I learned that day, I like opened my mind to this idea that I've been on this kind of predetermined path my whole life, that I hadn't like chose anything that I really wanted to do. I had just gone through school, chosen a major that like fit into what I was like good at in school, like math and science. That's what I was good at. And then got this job that was just offered to me. And that acid trip showed me that, just kind of opened my eyes to that idea that, hey man, you really haven't like chosen that many, you haven't really like done anything for yourself. You haven't found who you are. You've just kind of followed this path. So I started my job and did acid 2 more times while I was working there. And both times they just opened my eyes to more things. They basically confirmed to me that I need to get off this path. It's like I need to figure out myself, find out who I am. And so after about 4 months of working this job, I walked in one day and said, "Hey, I'm done. I quit. I couldn't take it anymore." I was like hating who I was. I wasn't having fun, like living. I was just waking up, going to this job that didn't mean anything to me. And I realized I have to stop this before it's so early. I can just quit it now and not have to worry about it and figure out the rest. I had like enough money saved up to really not worry about that for a little while. So I just said, fuck it, and walked in and quit. During the next like few months, I had a lot of free time and I started researching mushrooms and how to grow them, and just bought the equipment to do that and started really like getting passionately interested in fungi in general. I started listening to Paul Stamets on Joe Rogan's podcast and all of his like TED Talks and just videos on YouTube. I started like looking up Terrence McKenna and just getting really into like the psychonaut culture. And I ended up growing cubensis mushrooms and started eating those like fairly regularly. Not too regularly, about like once a month on average. I think I tripped 15 times in 2018 off the mushrooms. So about like once a month. It was mostly during the summer, I would say. I was doing them pretty often, every like 2 to 3 weeks or so. And those are where I like really started to figure out who I was. I was like working out. I was doing a lot of yoga during that time. I had transitioned to eating vegan and like had lost a lot of weight over the past, like since graduating college. I started getting in shape. I started just to develop, like slowly start to develop habits that just over time made me and are still making me, like I'm not finished, obviously, into like this better person. These mushrooms just like changed my life basically and turned me around. And at this point now I've moved down to Arkansas because my friend and his dad own a woodworking business, just a family business. And I still didn't like have a job at the time. I was playing Xbox with my friend, and he said, "Hey, why don't you just move down here and like come work for me and my dad, work with us?" And I've never done like any craftsmanship or handy like nothing of that sort of nature at all in my life, but like I was just given this opportunity to learn from two people who know so much about it, that I like couldn't turn it down. It was just such a good opportunity for me that it's not necessarily like what I want to do, but it's a chance to just learn this new skill and like learn so much that, about 6 months ago that was offered to me. And so now I've just been here working with one of my best friends and his dad. And like the fact that this like I wasn't seeking this out. It's so funny how this ties back into that quote you were reading at the beginning. I got chills when you were reading that. I wasn't seeking this at all. I just opened up and just started doing these things. And I don't want to say like things just fall into place. It's weird how these synchronicities, that's how you say that. Yeah. Start just like happening when you just open up, like you said. It's a real weird thing.
Yeah, man. And I really like your story. I think it's it's not it's nothing extraordinary that maybe some people would be like, well, that just sounds like what happened to me or whatever. But the key is what you were saying, that just just finding your path instead of like going, well, this is the path I'm on. This is what I'm supposed to do. I went to college for this and I'm supposed to have this job and everything. And I think you should really be grateful that, I'm sorry, did you say you're 24 now?
Yeah, I'm 24 now.
Yeah. Dude, to find that perspective at that young is amazing, because like, I didn't even come to that realization, till I was 35, and like, I had been on this path. I took a big break in the middle and didn't do anything. But once I, went to college and was like, well, I'm supposed to get this job. And, the first job that came up that was, pretty much offered to me as soon as I graduated was a government job, which is what everybody that I was going to school with was hoping to get, and it kind of just fell into my lap that it was even available in this area of the country and stuff like that. And I did that for 5 years, and every year I got more and more miserable, and just, due to psychedelics for sure, but also just life, I really came to the realization by following the synchronicities, and I came to the realization that like, I need to, like you said, like choose a path for myself, and live intentionally. And like, that's kind of what I did. But, to be able to do that 10 years earlier, man, is pretty awesome that you're already like finding your own way,
Yeah, it's for sure exciting. Like, to realize this, and like I also always feel like it seems like I need to like be working harder and like faster to like at just everything, and it is something I've been struggling with, this like especially this past like couple weeks in this month, is the fact that I have to take it slow. And like, I am young. I have to realize I'm young a lot of times, and there is a lot of time to go and develop.
Yeah. I mean, like, and to follow, your heart is harder. There's going to be more self-doubt. There's going to be more moments of like, fuck, I'm fucking up and whatever, or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You're going to question yourself more when you're actually, following your heart, like to follow whatever the path everyone else chooses for you or society chooses for you. That's easy. You could just, like just sleepwalk through life that way.
Yeah.
And so many people do. And that's what like this whole fucking thing with, that I make all these videos and podcasts and stuff is to like try to talk to the people that have, woken up and been like, no, I'm not going to sleepwalk through life.
Yeah. That whole, that like sleepwalking analogy is like pretty perfect, because school to me was like the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't know. School comes like very naturally to me, and just like how it is. And also college is like very easy with the internet now. Like it's a joke, honestly. Just like state universities, you can like, I don't know. It just wasn't hard, and I really wasn't trying, I just wasn't putting effort into life. But like when you have to work on yourself, or like even at my job, for example, there's 3 people and we're making stuff out of wood. Like if you don't put the effort in and like do the work, it just it obviously shows. Like something doesn't get made, you're not gonna lose weight, you're not gonna get bigger muscles. And so I don't even know where I was going. That like that just waking up and realizing like where that you have to put effort in has been something I'm like very glad I have realized early on, because I just didn't put effort into like almost anything in my life, like looking back, and it's like sad, I guess, but it's like super cool, I think, that to realize it, like we were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's living intentionally. That's the thing, like, and having a job where you're a craftsman and you're making something, and not just, like, no one could take your place at your job now. Well, I mean, somebody could, but I mean, it would be a lot harder, to where, a job working with computers, or, most people's jobs, you could be replaced the next week. Like if everyone has to stop and think about that. And now you got to do what you got to do. I know, I mean, people got to pay bills and whatever. So, I mean, I'm not trying to like, convince everyone to quit their job or whatever. I understand. But, to take things into perspective, if you can look at your job, and if you quit on Friday and they couldn't have someone in and keep going along without missing a beat on Monday, then your job is probably not what you're not following your heart at that point, if that's what you're doing to pay the bills. And, for as much stuff as people try to change about their life, be it diet or exercise or whatever, that changing that habit for people seems to be on people's minds for New Year's resolutions or whatever, that's what people want to change. I think they need to instead first look at that aspect of what you do for a living. Are you replaceable? And if you are, you should probably change that. And I think that would make everything else easier to change. Because that's what I noticed about myself is like before I decided to, do a total overhaul of my life, I was trying to lose weight. I was trying to eat better. I was trying to do all these things, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get the motivation to do it at all. And it wasn't until A, I had a lot of time on my hands because I wasn't working, but B, like I was really living with intention and trying to like make every day count, and stuff like that. Once I started doing that, it was a lot easier to eat better and to work out and to read more and, do a lot of things. And I don't know. That's what I'm just trying to do, is preach people that the importance of doing, kind of a in-depth look at your life like that.
Yeah.
And, that's definitely why I wanted to have you on, man, is because like you're doing that. And I think it's awesome,
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I'd like definitely tried to like lose weight and like read more, it's so funny how everyone like, it's like it always lead to this exact same thing. Like we were talking about earlier, because I was trying to do the same things, but I could never, like throughout high school and college, and you do it for a month maybe and it just fall off or something. But yeah, as soon as I started eating these mushrooms, it's like, man, look at your life. Like, let's get a hold of this and let's figure it out. Like,
and again, I do need to state again that like it's easy for me to say that because I don't work 40 hours a week and I'm not commuting, and there isn't the grind of working that a lot of people go through that gets in the way of trying to do those things. So it's easy for me to say that, I just had to change my perspective. It's like, also I had a lot of time on my hands, but I'm pretty close to getting back into the workforce and having those same difficulties to do that. But I've already changed my mindset, and that's the most important thing. So whatever job I do get, whatever time it takes up in my day, I'm going to be damn sure that I'm going to start off on the right foot and keep the positive change that I've had going, you know? And so, like, that's kind of, you know, what I also have to tell people is like, it may sound weird to me, like people may be listening, you know, being like, well, it's easy because you got all that time, but I do recognize that. But I wanted to ask you about like the vegan aspect. What did you just start feeling like you shouldn't eat animals, or was it just it just stopped feeling you were not hungry for it anymore, or it started tasting better? Like how did that come about?
So in that like month and a half before I started my job, my friend Gabby, we just started hanging out all the time. She had gone to we went to high school together, and she had gone to a different college, and we just kind of stayed friends. And then she had about the same time period off before she went off to graduate school. And so we were just back in the same area, and we started hanging out all the time. And she had either just started or had been doing it for like a few months. But we were just hanging out so often that it was just like, oh, I'll just like, it just kind of rubbed off on me, you know? And I liked all the food I was eating. I was just eating a lot of vegetables and fruit and nuts and just like super healthy stuff. And we also started going to hot yoga together, like in that time too. And so like the two in combination, I was like 225. I was just dropping weight. Like in like, I don't know, like 4 months doing that, I was down to like 160, or like 165. I just like shredded weight. And I was feeling like fantastic. And I will say I haven't been vegan that entire time. Through 2018, I know we talked about following Joe Rogan. If you've ever listened to Jordan Peterson, around sometime in 2018, he started doing this carnivore diet, and me and my brother got real interested in that. And so my friends give me a lot of shit for it all the time because they're like, what the fuck, you were vegan and now you're just eating meat? I was like, yeah, I want to try it. The vegan is cool. I love it. Like factory farming, I had like seen like videos and stuff and heard about it like all my life, but never really cared. But like, I do care. It's bad. And like, it isn't the proper way to eat meat. And so I like being vegan for that, but also like, trying that carnivore diet and just trying other diets here and there. Vegan is what feels the best to me. Every time I've tried it. And so, that's just kind of what I've stuck with now. And it's not hard anymore. Like, it's just like, I'm used to it. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. It definitely, now I changed my eating habits once I started, once I found mushrooms again, you know, as an adult and grew them and then, you know, started taking them again, like, and the lessons I started learning, and like, it started pushing me down, you know, what eventually became this path. I was eating garbage, man, fast food all the time.
Oh, me too.
Like shit fucking
It's
lunches.
so good.
Like, yeah. And just working and just eating shit. And like, it sucked. And that was definitely one thing that like mushrooms basically gave me the fucking kick in the ass to like eat better, but especially like you said, like really, it wasn't even like watching like documentaries about factory farms or anything, but like just knowing where, you know, where it all comes from. And like, how can you, you know, when you've got a fast food restaurant that is just pumping out burgers and nuggets and whatever, and like you've got one of those in every fucking town everywhere, like how many fucking animals is that? And like just like thinking of the sheer numbers of how disgusting that is, it just like I remember I had some trip where I was like thinking about that and thinking about how many animals are just like, you know, fed into a meat grinder basically every day just to feed these fat fucks burgers that they don't need, you know? And like, I remember thinking about that and being like, fuck, I can't do that anymore. And I never had like a thought that like I can't eat an animal. Like I've never had that, but it's just a factory farming, like, you know, and I fall off the wagon every now and then. And like, you know, I definitely still somewhat take part of it, but like just not to the degree that it was. And I'm definitely moving towards not, you know, not supporting that at all. You know, I mean, I try to buy local meat. I try to buy higher quality stuff. I've hunted before. If I had if it was easier for me to hunt, I would hunt all the time. My friend Sean that we had on, that's pretty much the meat that him and his wife eat. Like, that's it. Like he might order, if he goes to a restaurant or a grocery store, like he'll buy local, you know, like free range chicken and, you know, sometimes beef and stuff like that. But you know, he really makes sure that he knows where it's from. And then his wife doesn't eat any meat at all, except for the deer that he gets. And, well, that's not really from psychedelics. That's like just kind of like the lifestyle that he's, you know, made for himself. And so for me personally, like, I think it was a mixture of like working with him and talking with him about that, and then getting into mushrooms and stuff like that. Like it really like broke that. I mean, it's part of the whole sleepwalking thing, you know. I mean, like, even if you're living consciously, like sometimes just time makes you just like eat shitty, you know. Like I have that all the time with like kids. Like a lot of times you're like really rushed to get them a meal and you're like, God damn it, all right, I'll get you a goddamn Happy Meal, you know, or whatever. And like I know that that's hard to like break that kind of habit of being in a hurry. And what are we going to do? And you eat shitty food when you're in a hurry. And mushrooms definitely helped rewire my brain to, I mean, I guess it's like to just, again, it's all like living intentionally, eating intentionally as well, you know, like planning ahead, to be like, you know, on Thursday, I'm going to be in a rush because I have all these things. I better like make a salad before that and bring it with me, or whatever it takes to do that. I definitely think mushrooms, like, you know, gave me that vision of like disgusting factory farms, and not even for meat. Like, you know, I mean, there's vegetable farming that's disgusting with what they put on it.
Yeah, just like when you're growing the same crop in like hundreds of acres, like that's not how it's supposed to be grown at all. Like that's not good for the earth.
I mean, and it just comes down to whether it's meat or vegetables. We have a situation with agriculture in this country that there's a whole lot of people, and most of them don't give a fuck where their food comes from as long as it's cheap. So what do you think? What industry do you think's gonna like look? What do you think food industry is gonna look like if that's their clientele? You know, so you know, it definitely mushrooms really helped me kind of come to that realization and rewire my brain to like just kind of think a lot more consciously of what I'm putting in my body, you know. And like you said, that's a very common thing from people with psychedelics. Like that is a common lesson that we all seem to get, you know.
Yeah, and it makes sense that like a mushroom would do that too, from like the fungal perspective, just in the way like not necessarily cubensis or anything with psilocybin in it like reacts with us, just the way any kind of mushroom system works with anywhere in the like on the planet. And they just like they form these connections with plants and the soil and just make all these like networks and changes to just move nutrients around to make sure this tree's getting that, this plant's getting this. I'm going to take these nutrients from this plant for me because it doesn't need those. Just like those connections, it just makes sense that eating this particular mushroom will rewire our brain, like our human brain, to like better ourselves, which in turn betters others, which betters our communities, which just betters the planet. Like it just makes too much sense too, and the fact that it makes these such similar changes in such different people.
Yeah, I like. It's a Dennis McKenna interview that I heard, and I want to say it's the Rogan podcast, but it might have been, he was on Adventures Through the Mind, that podcast, and it might have been on there. But anyway, I think it's a common thing he says, you know, about that mushrooms and entheogens are the chemical messengers from the plant world to us, to humans, and that the drugs are there to give us a message from the rest of the plant world. And, that so much of what we do is ecologically harmful. And while we may not be destroying the earth, we're making the job of the plant world harder. They have to overcome us more because of it. And definitely the factory farming, whether it's plants or animals, is one of the most ecologically harmful things that we're doing. And it would make sense that the messengers that are trying to talk to us from the plant world are telling us, that I think Dennis put it, pay attention here, you stupid monkeys. Like, you're not the ones in charge or whatever, and that's possibly what they're saying is like, you need to stop fucking doing this. And maybe you can't change the whole industry. One person can't change an industry, right? But like the more people that it influences, the more that will influence the industry. And I think that's what the mushroom's trying to do, is turn on the people that it can turn on to like living in more community with your ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to go back and ask you, when you were explaining that you took your job right out of college and, that first LSD trip kind of showed you, this idea of getting off the predetermined life's path. What work was there for you to do to, not just quit your job, but to kind of find out what you wanted to do with your life, or find out, like you were saying, who you are? Was it just eating mushrooms and learning from the trips, or what other stuff, have you done, and what other work do you think other people should do to kind of help themselves out?
Yeah. So I mentioned, I've been going to hot yoga pretty regularly since graduation too, which has been my main form of exercise. And that's been a big thing, is exercising at least like 3 to 4 times a week. And then the other big thing I've been working on has been like spirituality. I said I claimed to be atheist since like 12 or 13, and was just like, angsty teenager atheist. And then eventually, in college, it's like, whatever, it's just, I don't care. I went to school in Arkansas and like met a lot and realized like, well, okay, most people who grow up in Arkansas, like, you go to church, like that's what you do, at least the people like that. And so it was interesting to, a bunch of my friends from Kansas went to church, but it was just like you didn't like talk about it. It wasn't really like I don't know, it just didn't come up much. But going to school in the South, it for sure came up a lot. And it was interesting to have this clash, because they didn't really have anyone they went to school with who would like outright just claim to be an atheist. But working on spirituality, mushrooms, and in particularly DMT, which we can talk about in a minute. I forgot to mention I had done that a few times. Showed me that this life isn't everything there is, that there is more, there's something else out there that's higher than us, that it's God. It's like, it's God if you want to call it God. It's whatever you want to call it. There's something more out there. It's just like, hey, stupid, like, you're not everything. Like, you're part of a bigger system. So having realized that, I started just slowly developing habits. Like, it wasn't one, I don't know, it's just one thing leads to another. And eventually, now I've got this meditation practice. I try to meditate every day. I don't necessarily make it every day. I make it more often than not. But like anywhere from like 5 to lately, I've been doing like half an hour sessions. It's just, yeah. And like, so this 2019 is the year I've been doing it almost daily. And I will say that you can get very far with meditation. I am just like in these past like couple weeks is when it started to really come on, when I've like moved on to these like 20 to 30-minute sessions. I've gotten into some very psychedelic states. I had this one state where I came out of it and was like confused for a second and had to remind myself that, oh, hey, dummy, you were meditating. Like, oh yeah, I'm in my room. Like, I'm fine. Like, I was just like, what? Just where was I? Like, just like coming out of like a psychedelic experience basically, and just kind of like coming back into the real world. I was just gone for a minute.
Yeah.
So
Tell that story you said about like when you were meditating and looking in the mirror. And you saw your friend.
So I think this was like the first time anything like real deep psychedelic had happened while meditating.
With meditation.
And I usually sit in front of my mirror, just like a full body mirror. And then I typically like to turn all my lights off in my apartment. And so I was doing that this time. And about 10 minutes in or so, I was just looking at my friend Gabby. She was just like meditating right in front of me, basically. Like that's what it was like to me. With my eyes closed, I just saw her right in front of me. And I was just like, oh, cool. Like, what's up? I just thought that. Like, hey, you're there. Like, I just kind of accepted it. And I like saw her for like, I don't know, probably a few minutes. She was just like meditating or like just doing like a yoga pose or something. She was just like right in front of me. I don't remember. I want to say something else like happened in that one, but that might have also been the time I got lost and like came out in that confused state. But I should start writing down these things because I've had like 3 or 4 in the past like month. But yeah, that one where I saw Gabby was for sure. I realized that one also. I realized at that moment, like, with like meditation, and I'd realized this with mushrooms before too. You just accept what's happening. Like, don't question it. Don't even like ask like why. Don't try and think about it. Just like realize it's the moment, and that's all there is this present moment. Like.
Yeah.
Just accept the moment and live in it. That's all you can do, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, your result of meditation and having these like psychedelic experiences from it is, it's great to have. And it's a goal like that people should get to with meditation, but they also shouldn't like be upset if they don't, like if you're just sitting there, like trying to fight off thoughts basically. And, that's all you're doing, but you're like in that moment and you're letting those thoughts pass by you. Like that's meditation. Like, I think like sometimes people, they get these like ideas or vision of like what meditation should be. And it should be like, transcendental meditation. And you should be like communing with monks in a, ethereal plane or whatever, like, movies and shit have shown about meditation. Like, that's not it really. Like, I mean, that's like a goal and it takes years of dedication and practice to get to, transcendental states like that. But like the first goal that you should have with meditation is just being in the moment and not following your train of thoughts, like it's okay. Like until you train yourself to like kind of just have a clear mind. It's okay to have, thoughts the whole time you're trying to meditate. If it's 20 minutes and you're sitting there and like you're constantly just like thinking of something, you're trying to train yourself to just be now and be like, well, that was a thought, and just focus on your breath, and like the hardest part about meditation is finding the time to do it. Honestly, like it's not a difficult practice, and it's just if you can sit somewhere for 20 minutes and just be like, that's important to be able to do that, I've always, whenever I'm in the woods with my kids, and they're crazy as fuck. Like, kids are definitely not meditators, right? They're like never stopping or whatever. I really try. I find a log and I'm like, let's sit down here, and I like just sit down, and like they're always like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And I'm just like, just wait, just listen. And I'll make it like there's supposed to be something cool, like Bigfoot's coming or whatever. But they'll be like looking around, but I'm just trying to get them to just be there and just be in the woods and like just be in that moment. And I mean, I do that all the time. Like, like honestly, when I, take my kids, like we sit down somewhere in the woods and it's obviously not meditation, but it's just like, we're just here. This is what we're doing. We're normally with kids, you're always just moving on to the next thing. I just try to like, just sit down. And what's funny is like, I'm trying to get, a 5-year-old to do that. Right. And I talk to so many people when I mentioned that, when we're talking about parenting and stuff like that, I talk to so many people that are, 35 or 40 or whatever, that they're like, I've never done that. Like in their whole life, they've just never sat in the woods. Like you're just always on a path from here to there, and like work to not work and sleep to work to not work. And it's just like, really, so it makes me, whenever I hear that, like there's people that are grown adults that don't do that, or have never done that, it makes me like, okay, for as crappy a parent as I think I am, I'm actually doing pretty good.
Yeah, that it makes me sad that that there's so many people out there that haven't just sat down. But the way that you're saying you're trying to teach your kids like that, dude, I am trying to teach my friends and family. Well, like my brothers get it, but like I'm trying to teach my parents this a lot. Like let's just like sit and like talk. Let's just sit and like be quiet, or like I don't know, if my friends want to hang out, like a lot of times I'm just like, dude, let's just smoke some weed and listen to some music, guys. Like, and just like hang out. Like, we don't have to be doing anything. That's how I like to spend my time, is just kind of enjoying the moment. And yeah, like we were saying, but it is, it's funny just how, yeah, you're teaching your kids. I'm not saying I'm trying to teach them. I'm more just trying to show, I guess, is how I'm trying to teach. Like, because you can't really like, I'm 24. I can't tell another 24-year-old friend who I've known forever, like how to change, just do something different. But I'm just trying to show more and live by example.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way I've found to like spread this message and teach these lessons and stuff.
Yeah. Be the change you want to see, man. That's my mantra, dude. I mean, on every level, like within my own family, all the way to my place in the universe, like be the change you want to see in the world. And it's amazing, how much you'll start to notice the world change because of that, honestly. I think it's awesome. So, you touched on it a minute there. But we talked about it the other night too. And why don't you tell your experience with smoking DMT?
Yeah. I have smoked DMT 4 different times. The first time I did it, I think that it was like right after or right before I quit my job. It was around that time. And I took just like 1 or 2 hits. I don't remember how much. I bought 100 it was 100 milligrams total, or 1 gram, sorry, for all these 4 times. I didn't put too much in, and I just smoked enough to see what it was like, because my older brother had done it before, and he said, dude, it comes like it's immediate. Like, it's different. And so I did it just a little bit to try it out, and it's so weird how fast, like, you take the hit and you're like tripping, like as soon as it's like in you. And it's a little scary at first, just because it's like such a new and crazy thing and so fast, but it's super beautiful. That first time I just kept my eyes open and was like looking at the cat and I just laid down on the couch, and my brother was sitting next to me. And I remember wanting to like describe to him like these feelings and what I was seeing. But my brain was like, hey, just like let it be. You can tell him about it when it's over. It's not going to be long. Like just sit here and watch. And that thought kept coming up, and I couldn't. I remember I tried to open my mouth, and it just wouldn't even let me. My brain like couldn't open my mouth, and that wasn't scary either. It was. I just was okay with it. And then I came out and talked to my brother, and it was great. Like it was a good time. And so that next day, I took enough to break through, and I remember just sitting back and closing my eyes and I was just moving at the speed of light, just as fast as possible in every possible direction. And then some, it made no sense. I felt like data and the internet were just like a mycelial network, just communicating with like everything at once in every direction. And just colors and shapes. It's just kind of the classic like DM. Like I didn't get much from that one. There was this one moment. I've been thinking about this a lot recently too, where I felt like time like folded over on itself, and I like saw it. I saw like two people sitting on a couch, and every time I think of this. In the moment, it didn't seem like it was me and my brother, but every time I think back to this, it seemed like I just saw like a camera viewing me and my brother, like basically what was happening in that moment in time from like the wall's perspective, because like no one else was there. But the more I think about it, it seems like I saw myself from like an out of body experience and was looking at my brother at the same time. And then I came out of it and was coming out of the DMT. It's very similar to that me talking about the coming out of that meditative state. I was so confused coming back out of it. And I remember the first thought I thought was, oh yeah, I smoked DMT. And like that triggered like, oh, okay, I kind of understand. Like I'm coming back. I get it. But at that same time, I could also like close my eyes still in that moment and kind of go back. But I was still like, I was definitely like on the come down. And then I didn't really touch it for like 3 or 4 months. And then on my birthday of 2018, I thought, all right, let's check up on this. And so I smoked some DMT, and the last hit I took, the last thing I remember is my brother saying, "Can you do any more?" And as he said that, it like trailed off, and I was looking. The wall was white, and then it led up to a white popcorn ceiling, and like I was leaning back in the couch, and just my vision trailed up this like white path, and the path was like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was this gate. And it like it was just me. It was like my life, everything I had done like ever. And it like all went up with me through this gate on this path. And this black like figure, I wrote down it was black, but it was not black is what I wrote down. So I don't know what that means, but it was basically, it was pure white and then this shadowy black thing. Those were like the only two things, and they were all made out of like the machines that morph into each other. You guys, I mean, you know what it is. Yeah, like the psychedelic just stuff. And it felt like I was in a doctor's office for like a checkup, like a physical. But it wasn't like for a physical. It was just like for my spirit, or for like whatever you want to call it, just like a checkup on life. And it felt really short because it was just like the entity, whatever it was just like, yeah, you're doing all right. Like, keep it up. You're working on it. You're figuring it out. Like, you're good. And it felt really short. And I asked my brother when I came out, I was like, how long was that? And he said, it was only 5 minutes. And I go, yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt way shorter than the past two I had done. And so that night I journaled about it. And like the last thing I wrote down was, I'm okay. I don't need to go back. But the next day, there was still some left in my bong. Like I didn't smoke it all. And I walked past it a few times throughout the day, and I was like, you know what? Like, I kind of want to try this again. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. Cause like, obviously like 10 hours before, whatever it was, I wrote down like, you're good. But my brother was at work at this point, and I had never done it alone. But the plan was I was going to put on some meditative music and just smoke a little bit like I did that first time. And so I had music playing from my room, and I was out in the living room, and I took one hit of it. And immediately I go, oops, that was too much. I don't want this. I don't want this. Like, no, thank you. And started fighting it. And the music turned into this horrific, like, just, I don't want to have any part of this. Like, I have to turn this off. And so I got up and stumbled to my room in just a haze and looked at picked my phone up. And if you've ever looked at your phone on mushrooms or LSD and it looks confusing, look at it on DMT, and it is like the most alien thing you'll ever see. And I was just so confused. And luckily it was plugged in with an aux cord playing the music. So like my just monkey instinct took over, and I just yanked it away and it stopped the music. And then I just just jumped on the bed and like laid face down and was just confused. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what I had done. I thought I had gone insane. I thought it was going to be like this for the rest of my life. I got up eventually and was pacing around the house, just scared, and like felt so alone, and just it was terrible. Like, it was terrifying. And luckily it's a real short trip. So like I came out of it, but I was shocked. I called some people, and eventually my friend came and picked me up, and I just had to be with someone basically that day. I couldn't be alone. I was terrified. And that for sure like turned me off of DMT, and I didn't like give it a lot of thought after that for a while. I just kind of been like, okay, we need to step away. It did teach me like, hey, you can't, these psychedelic things, they are, they're powerful. All that DMT stuff was also before, I had started eating mushrooms. So I'd only done LSD, and then I had tried DMT and then psilocybin. So I am kind of grateful for that last DMT trip I did to, it really kind of heeded the warning of, hey, like, these are way more powerful than you know, like, you have to respect this. And then also I've had this comparison recently when I've been reflecting on those two trips, of that first one where I got that checkup and it was just all white through this gate. Like, that was heaven. Like, that was heaven, that feeling. And then the day of not knowing who you are and thinking you're insane and not understanding just what anything is, and just being confused and in this pain and torture, like, that's hell. And whatever you want to think of as like an afterlife, I don't know. I don't buy into like the Christianity view or whatever of heaven and hell. I think it's kind of more of a heaven and hell are just whatever your life is at. Like, you kind of make them, it's just a heaven on earth or hell on earth to me. And I want to live in heaven. Like, I don't want to live in hell. I want to just live this good life. But yeah, going to both those places in like just a day after day, it's been real interesting to reflect on, like, over this past, now it's been a year and a half since, or a year and like 3 months, I guess, since those two trips. And Terrence McKenna has this joke of like people saying DMT is their favorite drug, and then they say, "Oh, when's the last time you tried it?" And they're like 1974 or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't know when the next time I might try like, or ever if I ever will. But man, will I never like not remember those trips, because it was profound for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've never tried it, and you know, I'm glad to hear your account of it on especially have it on the podcast, because it's a experience that Stan and I, can only speculate on, because Stan's never tried it either. I think it just sounds like almost like I'm not ready for it, almost, like, and a lot of people email me. That's one of the most common emails I get, is like, why don't you talk about DMT? Why don't you do DMT? What, and whatever. And I think what holds me back, like, your brother introduced you to it. And now how much had he smoked before you smoked?
I think my older brother had done it like 3 or 4 times in college, like 2 to 4, something like that. And he, I think, to be honest, we both bought some at that same time. I still don't think he has tried any of his, like, because he had those experiences in college, and then like he just didn't really, he just kind of got it because this opportunity came for us to be able to get some, and he was like, well,
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's even like had it around, and he's just like, no, I don't. It's just like, I'm not ready. I don't want to, like.
Okay.
So I totally get that. And I'm in the same boat. Like, yeah, I know some places where I could get some now, but like, no, I don't want to. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's my thing, is like, I don't want to do it alone. Like, doing mushrooms alone freaks me out. For as much as I've done it and will still do it alone, like I
oh yeah, there's always a fear for sure.
Right. Every time I've tried, Silent Darkness by myself, like, it's been scary, and like, I'm not going to lie, like, it's been important and awesome, but it's been scary. And DMT, I mean, just sounds like, and I totally, I don't think it would be completely foreign to me just from mushroom experiences I've had, but still, and even like your bad experience, was probably kicked off by, like you said, that initial, like, I don't want this. And as soon as you put that in your brain, boom, it's going to be scary, and if not bad, difficult, like we said, say, but it's that, oh no, that's that trepidation, right? It's like, as soon as you like kind of put one foot out, you get stuck in that middle realm. And you said it was hell, but it may not be hell. It may be more what purgatory is, right?
Yeah.
And that middle waiting ground, right? And I don't want to do that to myself. And I'm more likely to do that to myself if I'm by myself. I saw, it was that Hamilton Morris episode about DMT or whatever, where there's like that dude that like people pay and they just go and he's got that trip room and they smoke DMT. Like, I'm not going to do that either. Like, it needs to be someone that's like, in my life that is like, hey, I've done this before. Like, I don't know if that's almost like vouching for someone to the DMT elves, I guess, or I don't know, but like, you kind of got to be introduced by someone that's already in the club, whether it's been a while since they've done it or not. Like, I kind of feel like that's kind of how DMT needs to come into my life, that like, I love listening to people's reports of it. I love reading about it. I love talking to people about it. But it doesn't call to me because it just hasn't showed up in the right, time and place for me, I guess. I don't know. Is that kind of how you feel, Stan? Or
yeah, it's definitely, for me, it's more so the fear taking over. Like I just know I'm not ready. I mean, I'm like you said, shrooms are scary enough, that yeah, it's something that it's kind of like by the grace of God situation that I don't need it to come into my life or just totally unexpected. But one of the crazy things though that you mentioned about one of your DMT trips about seeing you and your brother on the couch, I've had very, very similar vision during a 5 gram silent darkness trip, where I was by myself. My buddy was my best friend at the time was on the couch, and I was just in an apartment, so really close quarters. But clear today, like I remember looking down, we were both on the couch, like smoking a bong, and then yeah, and I don't even know. Like after that, it was crazy, like running through different time dimension things, but no, that one part of it I definitely recollect. And when you said that, I was just like, whoa, hold up.
How long, like, when I saw this, I remember it being like under a second on DMT, seeing that, like,
Yeah, it was a glimpse
yep.
because what it was. Long story short, what at least my interpretation of it was, me and him were running away from some sort of dark spot. Like I encountered this dark spot of the trip, and then we started running away, and there was like these different doors, like a Scooby Doo type situation with the different doors. And inside one of the doors, when I opened it up, and it was like a calm feeling, was just me and him smoking in the bong, and then I just dipped it out and kept going.
Huh.
So yeah,
That's nuts.
Yeah, that one gave me chills.
I before I forget, I wanted to, when you mentioned about the music too, about that moment of like, well, I think you said, like kind of just animal nature of just like ripping the cord out of the phone. It made me remember this one time where in my one video I put up on YouTube of I think it's the LSD and mushrooms video that I'm talking about the differences, and I talk about this story where I did acid in this fucking weird ass kind of trap house, basically. I don't know if you saw that video, but it's just a kind of parents'
great
worst
story.
nightmare, honestly, like, of what your kids could be getting into. And but we were tripping really hard. And before all the crazy shit happened, just kind of like in the like pre-peak, but definitely tripping kind of phase of an acid trip. We were hanging out in this girl's bedroom, and she was like, "Do you guys want to listen to some music?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool, whatever." It was like, didn't really want to even like talk to people. You're just kind of trying to be in your own head.
Yeah.
And she's like looking through her CDs and like took forever. And her friend was like getting all like agitated and was like, just pick something. So it like, and that, I remember that already started like kind of the like anxiety was like these two friends kind of yelling at each other about CDs, and she's like, "Do you guys like Skinny Puppy?" And and her friend was like, "Whatever, just put it on." And like, I'd never heard Skinny Puppy. I think I'd heard of their name or whatever. And whatever. So like she put the CD on and we're just kind of like all laying back, like, kind of whatever in that like kind of irritable come up or, pre-trip. And no offense to anyone that likes Skinny Puppy. And I've never listened to them before, and I have kind of PTSD from this experience, so I've never listened to them since. It's awful, and like in like and whatever it was like a scary, like you said. I mean, did you say what album you were listening to, or what was the music?
It was some sort of meditation, track I found on Spotify.
Right. So that's, in reality, or consensus reality, is pretty calm, nice music, I imagine, to where Skinny Puppy is probably, I mean, it's like metal, I think. It's like industrial metal. So it's already intense and nasty and, you know, like invokes dark imagery and whatever. So it was playing at the same time that I'm going to interpret anything that's playing as dark and whatever. And I mean, this sounded like murder, you know, come to in audio form, you know, and like I was like freaking out. I was like, turn that off. And I remember the girl kept going, it's okay, it's Skinny Puppy, and like look at me right in the eye. And I was like, I don't care, turn it off. And she kept going, it's okay, it's Skinny Puppy. And she kept saying that, and it was like this fucking loop of me like, turn the fucking music off, and her going, it's okay, it's Skinny Puppy, to where I got up and because she's tripping too. And so I'm like, I couldn't find the CD player. And I was like, where's the CD player? She's like, it's okay, it's Skinny Puppy. And she's like holding me, you know, like has her hands on my shoulder, like looking in my face intently, going, it's okay, it's Skinny Puppy. And I'm like, turn the fucking music on. And like, and then the other two people were like, turn it off. And like, this is all that like kind of, you know, it's echoey, like in that state in psychedelia, like the audio is echoey, but it's also every other sense is echoing, you know, and her touching me, them, her in my face, the other people, you know, their emotions and telling me like, turn it off. And like, I can't find this CD player. It was the most like chaotic thing. And I forgot to put that in that video, but that was like a jumping off point for this chaotic trip, was this fucking Skinny Puppy CD that I don't know how long it was on. I found the CD player and I was hitting the buttons and they didn't work. And then I ended up just ripping it out of the cord, just out of like the whole CD. It was a boombox, you know, and I just just ripped it out of the wall. And, yeah, like it was this really fucking intense, scary thing that is very similar to your experience. Except you were by yourself, you know, and then I was like, amplified by all these other people freaking out, you know, and then we just were like, we gotta get the fuck out of this room, and then, you know, did whatever. But it's weird, man, because music's a slippery slope with tripping. You know, I like to listen to like kind of like funk guitar jazz. I like the band Soul Live, and an artist I really like is John Scofield, which is really kind of groovy, mellow music. And I remember, you know, like nowhere near as chaotic, but just tripping by myself on mushrooms, you know, a couple years ago or whatever, and just listening in headphones, and even just that like jazz guitar music, it gave me that, where I had to be like, oh fuck, and took the headphones off. And it's weird because sometimes music is awesome with most of the time, music is awesome with psychedelics, and it helps the same way music helps meditation. It helps a psychedelic trip of just kind of like guiding it and whatever. But it is weird when you're already having that you know, difficult trip or anxious trip. Music can make it so much worse, and you just like grab onto whatever fucking emotion is coming out of that music, and grab onto the negative part, and like just fucking, it just ramps everything up in your body. So like when you're telling that story, like I definitely was like, man, I fucking know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. That you mentioned it being like chaos and chaotic. I like that word because I like that like Jordan Peterson talked, like he kind of coined the whole like chaos and order. Like you have to venture into chaos to like learn, and then you bring your life back, like you come back into order. Like that's kind of, it's just like the yin and yang. That's like, it's life is what it sums up to be. But like psychedelics can throw you into that chaotic pool and like that chaotic mess sometimes. And but yeah, like both my DMT and your LSD experience there, it's in the moment, yeah, it sucks and it's super weird and just confusing and stuff, but it comes back to order. And like yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Skinny Puppy, man. But I also wanted to ask, to go back, you're talking about your DMT experiences, NMDMT, right? Or are you talking about 5?
Yeah, it's NN.
Okay. And so was that when your brother took it in college or prior to that, was it that too, or 5-MeO?
Yeah, both my brothers have done in DMT now. And then my younger brother, he smoked changa a few different times,
Oh wow.
which I think I might try that if I try it again. From what he tells me, it seems like you can just it's a lot easier to smoke too. You don't have to like when I was smoking the like crystals, I had to like hold the lighter like above. I had like a pretty big bowl, which was nice, so I could like pack it like really low and then just kind of like hover the lighter above it, and that's how it worked for me. But with this changa, like you just throw it in a pipe or bong or whatever and just light it like weed. So I feel like it's just easier like that, and it's I don't know. And every time he's tried it, he just talks about how easy it was and how it's not as scary, I guess.
Yeah. It definitely seems to be the common thing that you see people say. That's an easier introduction, at least to that molecule. I think actually, hopefully it'll work out. I think our next guest that we should be having on has experience with that. So I think I'm the same way. I think I would be more, if I am going to do DMT, I think that's the way I do it.
With changa also, you can like pass it around, like it can be like a weed circle, and like at like a music festival or something. I've seen people, just passing it around in a circle. Everyone's just sitting in a chair and you pass it. Like I feel like that could be a cool experience. A group DMT experience could be very very rewarding as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I've talked to people before, and another person I hope to have on at some point who I've met through this channel and stuff that I consider a good friend now. He's had like an ayahuasca ceremony, with like a large group of people down in South America, I think Costa Rica. And I hope to hear his story about that. But I agree that a solo journey is definitely more likely to be scary, and while I guess you could still have in a group setting it be scary. I think there's less likelihood of that, and I think both experiences can be equally as powerful for everyone involved. And I definitely do. If I was going to do ayahuasca, like I know people have said, oh, you can just make it yourself and try it. Like, I don't want to do that either. Like, even though it's not as intense as smoking it, like if I'm good, I would at least want to do it with one other person, I just.
Yeah. When the trip reports of people taking like ayahuasca come up, I tend to click on them. But the one, it always seems weird when it's the ones where like they're just doing it at their house and they eat the Syrian root, and then just like swallow some DMT crystals. I'm like, well, that's a weird way. Like, I feel like it should be this ceremonial thing. It's like ayahuasca is the one where it seems like you should do it the way it is done in this ritual setting. For sure.
Yeah. Right. Well, and like, I don't like the whole, like tourism aspect of people just going down and paying some fake shaman, 15 grand to I don't like that whole thing. And if someone wants to do that and is okay with it, that's great, whatever. I'm just talking for myself. Like I would feel like a gringo, like
same,
I would just,
for sure,
and whatever. So, but I would definitely respect the tradition that certain ayahuasca ceremonies that are like in the States are doing, to where it's not the whole tourism kind of exploiting the area kind of thing, but it's still respecting their traditions those traditions exist because they've been using this stuff for longer than there's been, white people on this continent, and so like they learned all the shit we've been learning since the 60s about how to handle bad trips or how to integrate your trip, whether it's good or bad. They've learned about dosage and that it's not that important, that it's important to focus on the experience and the ceremony and not the dosage. These are all things that we're still fucking arguing about in our culture. So to take ayahuasca and respect the tradition and the ceremony of the people that have fucking figured this shit out, I think that's important. And I would definitely, whenever I do ayahuasca, want to incorporate those traditions. But I don't ever see myself like booking a trip to South America to take ayahuasca like that. That just doesn't fit like kind of my view of how I want to introduce that molecule into my life,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's ayahuasca ceremonies happening everywhere in the States.
Oh yeah.
If you meet the right people, you'll find the right places, and that's another one of those things though, that if I am going to do that, it's going to be an unexpected, not me seeking it out type of thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Like, I think ayahuasca will come into my life at some point, but I am not like not at all seeking it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I'm not gonna buy stuff online and make the tea myself and take it in my basement and be like, well, I hope this goes well. Like I'm not going to do that, and props to anyone that is, because I definitely talk to a lot of people that do, but, I like, it's just not, I know myself and that wouldn't go well, but, yeah, I mean, and much the same way with smoking it. I know I can go online and buy it and smoke it myself in my basement, but I'm just, I don't know.
Dude, it will stink up your house for sure.
Oh, yeah.
DMT smells terrible.
Yeah. It smells like mothballs, right? Isn't that what Terrence said?
Yeah. I've never smelled a mothball though, so I couldn't tell you.
Oh, they're terrible, man. They smell so bad. That's if you got like skunks and raccoons under your porch, you want to throw mothballs under there because it fucking scares away raccoons and stuff. So I imagine smoking that shit would be pretty harsh. But yeah.
The one thing I was watching DMT trips online this morning, actually. I didn't even know that we were going to talk about DMT today, but I was on YouTube just viewing people's claims of smoking DMT, and the majority of them are them smoking and sitting back and doing nothing for 10 minutes. But the one thing that I saw, which I've read about, but I never actually have seen it in video or in person, was people making DMT vape cartridges, just like a THC cartridge.
Oh yeah, that's been a big thing recently.
Yeah, and I was just like, holy shit, like that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like don't mix up your cartridges.
Yeah. Have you guys seen American Gods I think it's on Stars, but I get it through Amazon.
No, I've never heard of it.
No.
It was like a book. Neil Gaiman, I think, is the author's name. Does that sound right? I don't know. Anyway, it was a book, and it's all about like in mythology we have these gods that were in charge or controlled different elements of life back in the times of ancient Greece and stuff like that. And so basically the whole premise of the book and the story, I think it's all like a social commentary about the things that drive modern society, but it's basically that like the old gods are still around, but they're old and they're like they've ceded power to the new gods of the new influences on the world, and one of them is the god of technology, and he it's hard to explain like the way that whenever he shows up in the show, it's like this very mechanical way that I've seen on mushrooms with Syrian rue and nitrous oxide. Like it's visuals, dead fucking nuts of like what I've seen for that minute or two of the nitrous affecting the trip. But it also sounds like what like the kind of like geometric patterns and stuff that people describe of DMT. But anyway, when he comes into frame and stuff like that, it's very trippy like that. And he always has this vape cartridge that it's like a vape pen with like a bubble and then the mouthpiece, and in the bubble is a toad. and he's like smoking that, and it's like, like, I mean, that's 5-MeO DMT, but still, it's like he's got this vape pen, like he's, a modern millennial or whatever. But he's got, a vape thing, but it's got a toad in it. And then it's also, he's always has this trippy DMT, tryptamine like entrance. And it's, it's such a fucking like, whoever like added that part to the show, it definitely fucking knows what's up,
Yeah, dude, for sure. The technology, I don't know. It's so obvious. Like, it's super psychedelic the way just the internet happens, the network it is, and like,
oh yeah,
just how all this technology just works so seamlessly together. Yeah, it's for sure. It's like LSD. It's obvious with fucking Steve Jobs talking about LSD, and especially how all of Apple's products, it's just this seamless transition now. Like that vision LSD gave him is pretty obvious to see, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. Well, and mushrooms, man. I mean, the internet, and I talk about it when I talk about cryptocurrency and like the initial like I realized the importance of cryptocurrency while on mushrooms and kind of,
me too.
Visualizing, and it's a mycelial network. The internet is a mycelial network,
Yes.
And blockchain is just it's the next phase of the internet. It's not a new thing. It's not a fad. The market and the value and the talking about Lambos and all of that. Yeah, okay, that's just hype. But the underlying technology that everyone is speculating about, it's a mycelial network, and like Stamets talks about, right, how much of the ground that we walk on is mycelium, right? Well, I think that's another thing the mushrooms are sending a message to us, is to complete that mycelial network above ground. And I think that's what we've done with the internet, and what blockchain is the next phase of that construction, and man, I mean, we're going on fucking 2.5 years since I had that vision. And man, it's hell of a foresight, because it's really fucking coming true, and it's, yeah, technology isn't as inorganic as people want to think it is, I feel like,
Yeah, for sure. And on the Bitcoin topic, I bought into Bitcoin like when I graduated college, because I had some money and was looking into it after those first few acid trips, and it was I didn't buy into it to make money. Like, that was never the goal. It was I'm buying, like, this is what's happening. Like, it's coming, and I see it coming. Like, it's gonna take over eventually, and I want to like kind of I want to get what I can now. And like my parent, it was right before I kind of bought right before it went up to that crazy like 19,000 jump. And my parents always, every time I see them, they're like, "You're going to sell that? Like, you still holding on to that? It's down again. Like, it's not coming back up to what it was." And it's, every time I hear that, I just always think it's just an ignorant thing to say. Because like you, I've had these visions, and it's so obviously this mycelial network, like, of how nature works and how like money should work, and like in this digital world, that, yeah, I'm not holding on to it for money. I'm holding on to it because like I believe it's what's coming, basically. Yeah.
Right. And at the very least, just because, it is, at least in our lifetime, to think that it's going to take over. I don't think it's going to happen that quick. Maybe eventually. But at the very least in our lifetime, it will be an excellent alternative economy for everyone that's left behind. Everyone that's left behind by just fucking, I mean, I don't like to wax like economic theory because I don't know that much about it, but there's a lot of benefits to capitalism, but one of the side effects or drawbacks of capitalism is like a lot of good people get left behind, man, and like our economy does that, and crypto and that's what I've talked about in our podcast we did about it. Crypto provides at least a second fucking opportunity to just live your life and not be so burdened by the
dude, it frees you. It opens up more freedom, and that's what humans need. We just need more freedom and to not be under all this strict. Like, I realize we're not living in like communist, like Nazi Germany or, fucking fascist regime or anything, but we are under still a lot of rules. You can go to jail for smoking weed still, like,
right. Yeah.
Or for growing a mushroom. Like, I am trying to preach these mushrooms to everyone I talk to because I just grew a mushroom and ate it. That's all I did. Like, what did I do that was wrong? Like, I shared it with my brothers. Like, sorry. Like, they wanted, like, I'm teaching these lessons. I'm learning about myself. I'm bettering myself. Like, I feel happier. I was like severely depressed like my whole life. I like realized basically, and I'm like way happier now. So,
yeah. Well, and you could grow a poisonous mushroom and eat that and kill yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
yeah, that's fine. But the one that stopped your depression without having to buy some pharmaceutical that when you stop taking it, you're gonna, go postal. Like, that's wrong. You shouldn't be curing your own depression with a mushroom you can grow in your closet.
Yeah. I've been microdosing kind of like on and off. I don't know, just whenever, but I did it yesterday and Tuesday. So 2 days in a row this week. And I had like a shitty kind of day on Monday or just a weird day. And, just like was having like real weird emotions and stuff. I was like crying at yoga, like really hard at the end. Just like, I don't know. And I couldn't like figure out what it was. But then anyways, I took a microdose both Tuesday and Wednesday and just, I don't know. It just gives you this mood boost, just helps you live in the moment. Like it just helps me out sometimes. I never want to say like, I don't know, like I need them or anything, because I always feel like that's like a dependent thing. But dude, every once in a while I like, it gives me enough to like get back in the rhythm and just get back into the swing of things. Cause sometimes you fall out and like, it just, the microdosing is super cool, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Stan, how's your microdosing been going? Have you still been doing any or?
Yeah. So let me think. I kind of like just stopped all things until last week, I would want to say. Other than like Kratom, that was the only thing I was like consistently using for like a pre-workout boost. But I took per somebody's suggestion on the Discord like 0.23 of psilocybin mushroom, and I hadn't had any psychedelic in me in quite some time. Like the last time was probably like an LSD microdose, probably end of last year, maybe. And the mushroom just like I had an incredible amount of energy, first of all. But the most thing, like the biggest thing that, or the most impactful thing I think I took away from that day was it kind of just like forced me to shed away all distractions towards the goals I'm trying to accomplish and like the core goals, like personal websites that I'm trying to create and, personal music that I'm trying to create. And those are kind of like what I believe are my two kind of main goals right now. And I spend so much time, whether it be like working on other people's sites, or I also do like bike deliveries. So if I spend time doing that, I'm not spending time chasing my goals, and focusing on making myself happier instead of just chasing after money. And that was the biggest kind of impact that made, that made me realize, was I went out biking that night, and it was like the first time after biking probably 4 nights a week for a month and a half, that I was just thinking, like, why am I doing this? Like what it just gave me the second to like really think about it. And I still bike, but it's more controlled, and it's not it's not 4 days a week, it's every other day and all that stuff. And that was just from one day. But I haven't gone back since then to try to microdose, but it's on my mind to try again. And I was actually thinking about doing it probably next week. To start off the week, I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think as like a Monday morning thing for me to like just kick my ass into gear and start off the week strong. Like, I think that could be a very, very powerful substance for that.
Yeah. I took like a month and a half off of mushrooms after I ate 8.5 grams. And then like when I was eating them like pretty like 2 to 3 times, or every 2 to like 3 weeks, and I built up to that, and then had like a really powerful experience, and kind of was like told by them to like, hey, cool it for a little bit. And then I tried, the way I got back into it was microdosing. And so like I hadn't had a psychedelic in me in a while. And then I realized how powerful a microdose is, kind of like you just described. Like you can have these like psychedelic revelations or feelings, just any psychedelic like feelings for sure on a microdose. As long as you're like, you just like kind of notice it and you're just aware of yourself. I think that's kind of what they allow you to do. And then you listen to them. And that's why the microdosing, I've never tried microdosing LSD, but microdosing mushrooms, you find tons of different schedules people do all over the place. But anytime I've tried to follow a schedule, it just comes back to, hey, just take this when you feel like you need it. Like you kind of know yourself. Like, that's kind of how I've been doing it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, and I was thinking I might do a video pretty soon to expand on like what my kind of summation of a pretty much a year of experimenting with different dosages and regimens of microdosing, and just kind of this whole experience with the podcasts and videos and stuff. And I think where I'm at is that while I understand the reason that Dr. Fadiman, came up with the regimen of 1 day on, 2 days off, and doing that for a certain amount of time, and making sure to journal and observe your your changes that way. I understand that, and I recommend people try it. I will always bring attention to that regimen, and that it's the suggested way to do microdosing. I just think for me that, like you said, to take it as needed, a day that is going to be a good day, and like you can just really fucking ramp it up by microdosing, works for me. Just maybe even because I don't know if I'm going to have an easy day that is going to be aided by microdosing. I don't know if that's going to fall on one of the on days, and like I need more like consistency. And if I have a rough day, and I know it's going to be a rough day, but it's also a day I'm supposed to microdose, and I'm going to talk myself into like, well, it'll be easier with that, but it actually makes it worse. So like trying to stick to a regimen like that doesn't work for everyone, and I'm definitely one of those people. But that being said, to take it, because I think I said before that I thought LSD was better for microdosing. in a regimen, because I don't think the regimen is good for me, I actually think that mushrooms are better as to take as needed than LSD is. The LSD, I really need to have like either getting used to it, because I feel like it the first day you start microdosing LSD, it's going to be very intense almost. But I feel that it gets more of a it builds more of a tolerance than mushrooms does for some reason, at least in the microdosing range. And to take that as needed can be really you know, unexpected. Like, you know, you don't know how you're going to have the day you're going to have with a LSD microdose, to where the mushrooms just kind of melds with however the day is, I feel like. And so I mean, like I said, I'll make a video to expand on that more, but that's kind of how I've felt. Like you just said, that, you know, to take as needed, especially with the mushrooms, works better for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the clear difference that I noticed between my memory of microdosing LSD and the mushroom was that I felt the mushrooms effects were more they're more noticeable, and the LSD microdose was more like stimulating and like somewhat of like an Adderall type feeling to me, at least. Um, Whereas I could see the regiment coming into play with a feeling like that if you're, you know, a data scientist in Silicon Valley or something where all that's happening, because it is like taking an Adderall every day or whatever, or every other day. But the mushroom is just like you said, it's kind of just something that flows with the day that you have the coming for you, regardless of microdose or not, and you could just take it to enhance the day.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to the my brothers and I always talk about the differences between LSD and shrooms. Is mushrooms are so much more natural feeling, whereas LSD, I don't know, it has this technological real feel to it, that you can. It feels artificial, to me at least.
Yeah,
In a sense, yeah.
And it definitely I don't, so like what I've noticed with microdosing LSD, and especially the first microdose I tried, where like, you know, I think like the top of the range is recommended at 20 mics, and so I was like, all right, well that's what I'm gonna take, you know, instead of starting at the bottom. And I was at Temple, actually. It was some sort of holiday, and I went with my family to some sort of Jewish gathering on the first day, and I mean it was not good.
Oh my God.
It was not good, and I was like sweaty and like really flushed in the face. Like I'm sure my face was beet red, and yeah, it wasn't good. You know, it was definitely more fit to where like when I've taken too much of a mushroom microdose, it's just kind of like, well, I'm fucking stoned, you know, because I mean, it's really just like eating a really, really strong cannabis edible or something, you know, or whatever. Like that's about the, you know, the worst of it. But yeah, that the LSD microdose, if you have it dialed up too high, it's a lot more overwhelming, and in like an energetic, like hot, sweaty way. I don't know. A little bit of nausea too, and stuff like that, where like I don't get that with the mushrooms when it's a little too high. And also even at the lower doses with the LSD, I was trying to take it like the same way as Stahn and I have talked about taking kratom to go work out for the stimulation. And I was taking like about 10 mics of LSD to try to go work out. And while it gave me motivation to do it, man, I had really, really bad muscle cramping, like painful. Like I was doing sit-ups, and all of a sudden I was like, you know, completely cramped up and in you know, extreme pain. And it wasn't, you know, I drink a lot of water. It wasn't dehydration. I mean, I really, I didn't think it was the LSD at first. But after I started cutting out certain like supplements and stuff I was taking, trying to find it, it was the microdose that it was really making my muscles cramp. And I was thinking about it, and I think it kind of makes sense because Dr. Hoffman, when he was working with ergot extracts, was working on like something to work with uterine contractions. So it obviously does have some sort of effect on the cellular level of like muscle contraction. And so because of that, like I was like, I'm not going to take this regularly. And I don't even think I'm going to microdose LSD really ever. Unless I, end up not being able to find mushrooms or something like that. And I really want to microdose. But I think I'm going to keep it for larger trips. And cause that's the next thing I want to do is have like 100 mic LSD trip or maybe more. I'm not sure, but I think I'm just going to hang on to it till then and not microdose with it because I don't know. It doesn't work for the as needed. It doesn't work for the motivation. And I'm like, those are the two reasons that I want to microdose. And I don't think LSD works for that. But.
Have you taken LSD? Like, when was the last time you took LSD? As like a dose, like a trip dose.
Right. Let's see. Probably the third year of Bonnaroo. So I don't know what year that was, but
so it's like been a number of years. Like,
oh yeah, that was probably
okay.
I mean, I could Google it, but I mean, it was probably 2005.
Oh, okay. This is what I'm getting at. Okay, so you've done a lot of like mushroom stuff. Like you've only done kind of mushrooms in your adult life or like this period, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I took LSD my fourth time, and my last time I took it was like after I had done like 6 or 7 of those mushroom trips, and it was like enjoyable for the first like 3 or 4 hours, and then it just kept going and going and going. And
yeah,
I took it with my younger brother, and he lived in the town like 30 minutes over, going to college. And I stayed at his place. We took it at like 7 p.m. and I didn't sleep. I stayed up, and there was a yoga class at 9 a.m. and the whole night I was just laying just out in his living room on the couch with a blanket in the dark, just awake all night, just like thinking, I got to get to yoga. That's the only, like, I just have to do yoga right now. I need yoga in my life. Like I can't, I don't know. It really like, that LSD trip kind of was like, all right, I got what LSD needed to show. Alan Watts says, if you get the message, hang up the phone. And, while I kind of like disagree with that because mushrooms like told me to hang up, but then they like called again. So I think there's like more to that quote that needs to be said. LSD, I have not got the call again. Like it was like, all right, stick to these mushrooms. Like LSD showed you the pathway and like allowed this life to come. But it gave me a real weird vibe that I just didn't really care for anymore.
Yeah. Well, I totally get that. And that's to have the awareness to be able to be like, yeah, I'm done. Like that's one of the most important, the courage to do them in the first place and the awareness to know when to stop doing them is the two most important things you can have with psychedelics. Right. And but I actually am getting that calling again is the thing. And I'll tell you why, like, when you took it and you were up all night, like you took it kind of towards the end of the day, correct?
Yeah.
So the key for me, at least, it's a breakfast thing, man. like it's you got to have a nice day that you can be outside and that you can't get bothered. And those are three things that have to match up perfectly for most people. But if you can take LSD at 9, 10 in the morning on a day like that, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've only done it a handful of times, and I'm lucky enough that I can go to my family farm in New York and not see a fucking soul for days and on end if I want. And the weather's fucking beautiful up there. So like, that's the situation that I have to put together. I'm not going to like take LSD when my kids go to sleep for sure. That's, there's no way that I'm going to do that. It's tough enough to do that with mushrooms. But I know what you're talking about the staying up all night, because, most of my late teens, early 20s, most of my memories are of being at like a Denny's at 4:30 in the morning with my buddy that we were tripping all night, smoking a pack of cigarettes each and drinking coffee. I know what you're talking about the like just up. It's more than Coke. Like, I mean, like as far as the keeping you up.
The first time I took it, when I took it at 9 a.m., I remember laying down to go to sleep at probably like 12:30 that night, and journaling at like 2:30 because I had been just thinking and laying and just couldn't sleep, even though I was done tripping for sure. But
yeah. Well, because it's an adrenaline thing at that point too, like if you have a fucking intense trip.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was the first kind of like, I had taken mushrooms that one time before, but that was the first like, okay, whoa, like what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. But I definitely, I'm aware of all that, but that's like I was saying, I'm getting the calling to, construct a weekend that I can do that. I think, especially in my situation with like, I've just been enveloped by my family and been this fucking, mama bear basically, for 2 years now of like no time to myself really. And just like involved in everybody, structuring everybody's life and taking care of everybody. And, for some reason, even though I don't, like I said, I wasn't microdosing with it or anything. Like that's what I was thinking, was like when I felt like, I'm not going to microdose LSD anymore. Like that thought just came in my head. Like, dude, you need like a getaway private day trip with this shit. That's what you need to do with it. And that was like the message I got. So like, I think in the late spring, early summer, I will be able to do that. And, I hope to report back to everyone about that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. I'd be interested to hear about that.
Yeah. But we're at hour 45 minutes, man. We could definitely talk longer, but we should probably wrap it up. It's fucking awesome talking to you, man. I dig the path you're on, man.
Cool.
And,
thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I was nervous at first, but
man.
I'm very glad we did this.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime, man. And to anyone else out there, like Stahn and I were saying about, just kind of like having this sluggish start to the year and everything. Like I know everyone else is feeling it too, and like let's just start picking it up. And anyone that had gotten a hold of me, like Martin, I can't even remember when you first emailed
Dude,
me,
I think in like January.
Yeah.
But it is springtime now, and I agree, man. I am feeling great. The energy, the sun is out, and things are growing again, and it is insane how much better I feel. It's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyone that emailed me to come on, like email me again. I definitely think like with Martin, we talked first and like kind of got to know each other. So like I want to do that before anyone comes on, I guess. So like just get back a hold of me, hook up with me on Skype and add me as a contact and hit me up. Let me know when you can talk. We'll talk and we'll do episodes, because I know there's like about 20 people that email me that like either I ghosted you or you ghosted me and whatever. And I know it's all just kind of because of the down energy of the winter, and like, let's pick it back up. So, anyone that's listening that is, wants to come back, wants to come on, just email me back and we'll start recording more episodes, because I know Stahn like every week would be like, you got anyone lined up? And I'll be like, no, man, and I know it's been about 3 weeks, and I hope to get back to doing 1 or 2 a week. So definitely hang in there, and spring is here, and let's just get the energy flowing. And as always, if anyone wants to call and leave a voicemail, do you have the number there, Stahn?
Yeah, it's 567-233-1335.
Cool. Yeah, so just leave a message, and you can be anonymous or leave your name or whatever, and give us something to talk about. But until then, thanks for helping find the others.